This is exactly how I made $2,000 day trading in one single day off of the Dow Jones US 30. So in this video, I'm going to be going over exactly my confluences, my setup, and just everything that I did in terms of mapping out this trade and being able to take it. And also some things that I could have done differently to do better. So first things first, let's go ahead and start with this in the replay mode. So we'll go ahead and match up the VIX as well, because I largely trade the VIX in addition to the US 30. So first things first, I'm using my algorithm right here in order to build off of this bias, but in order to demonstrate what I'm looking at, I'll keep it in the replay mode and show you without anything, right? We're just gonna look at the raw chart and the data before we get into this. So this right here is a relative strength. We're not going to look at this either. And we're going to really just put this together like if it were a complete raw chart. So first things first, looking at the fundamental news, that's going to be number one. What did we have in the markets today? So in the markets, what we had were big news from the Trump tariffs. Very back and forth action to where market prices were going up because it was announced that there was going to be a 90-day pause on the tariffs. However, with that being said, it was also an announcement that there was going to be an increase in tariffs for China if they did not accept the position. And me figuring out my bias, I kind of figured that, okay, China's probably not going to accept these tariffs, right? There's going to be more addition, which is going to move the markets downward. That was already my predetermined bias of it being in a downtrend, and also we had already been in a large downtrend already. So with all those being said, what I was really looking for here was on the 4-hour, I noticed that we came into a pretty big demand zone where people were buying, right? Like this is historically a pretty big demand zone where we had a touch point right there, right? And we also came in right here. So seeing this, I knew that I was slightly at an advantage, and we had a very big fair value gap all the way up into here to where this would kind of act as like a magnet for the price to want to jump into here. However, I noticed that while we had a fair value gap up in here, we also had one down here, right? This one was even better, right? Because I can see it's just the wick. So looking at this trade on the 15-minute time frame, there's not much for me to see here. But how did I know to get in right here? How did I take this as a shorting opportunity? Well, a couple of things that we need to pay attention to is the time and session, right? I typically do not trade within these hours right here because that's going to be and we can go ahead and make this a little bit better. So we'll have our demand zone right here, right? And we'll just go ahead and make this green. But I don't trade in these hours because this is after hours, this is the Asian session. So I saw that we pumped during the Asian session, but right as we started to hit the New York session, and we'll go ahead and put this on like a slow replay mode. When we hit the New York session, I typically trade at around 7:30, which was about right here, okay? So the time I entered this trade, and we can go in and look at it, I'll go ahead and pull it up. So the time when I entered this trade so this was from today, and this trade was from yesterday. So let me see if I can pull it up. So this was the trade, and I entered in at, well, I took a short position. It says around 16 o'clock. So I believe that was about 2 hours prior from right now because I just got out of this trade. So that was around 9 a.m. So I took this trade at around 9 a.m., which was about right here. Okay, so I was kind of just letting the markets play out until, and then here, I'll map this out right here. This is about when I took the trade. So I took it about right here, right? As soon as we got this big candlestick to the downside is when I took this trade, because I took it at, let's see, around 9:30. So let's see, actually. Okay, I specifically remember now. I took this trade right here. So let me go ahead and map this out. The trade was placed about right there, and then my take profit was about here, and then my stop loss was right there. So I had about a 1 risk to reward ratio, somewhat similar to that. It was about right there, and then in all honesty, like my stop loss was like, you know, it was like in this area. So the risk to reward was like, it was kind of mid in all honesty, but I knew that the setup was super good. So I got in with a sizable position for it to be worth it. All right, but how did I know? Like, how did I have enough confluence in order to hit this trade and to make $2,000 and to take this, right? And before you come at me and say, oh, your risk to reward wasn't good enough, I knew that this was a high probability trade. And there was an opportunity for, I would say, like a 1 to 1.5 risk to reward ratio, which I will tell you about. And this is something that I could have done better, right? Because just because I made 2K today doesn't mean that, I'm a perfect trader. So I knew to take this short position right here. I mean, already, right? Like I knew, okay, China's not going to back down. I mean, that was just kind of one of my preconceptions that I already had in my bias. It's not saying that you need to have a bias and you can't just trade price action, but I was seeing this, right? And I saw that we started to break down, and then we had this right here. So another thing that I use is my algorithm, right? Which is my set of technical tools. So I saw that the relative strength was very overextended right here. I saw that price had just theoretically, based on the average, gone up too high. And also I used my algorithm right here, right? So it gave me this position. So these ones I weren't taking, right? Because they were in a different session. But this one, as soon as it came in the market open, I saw this and knew that, okay, I'm going to be looking for a short position. Now going on to the second thing, looking at the technicals. We already went over the fundamentals. We went over the price action, but how did the technicals look? Something that really stood out to me was this moving average right here. And I saw that the price historically would come up to the moving average and come down and bounce off of it. So I saw that that was in effect right there. So we had a high relative strength. We had a signal that came in from the algorithm, right, that was essentially saying, okay, we have a high relative strength and it looks like the price is about to bounce down. So what I also went ahead and did, right, is mapped out the take profits and stop losses. So this is what I was mentioning, right? And this is how I could have personally done better as a trader. What theoretically could have been done here is for this position, obviously, right, is a 0.75 risk to reward ratio is pretty small. But if you go all the way down to the second take profit, it becomes a 1.5. So I should have held to the second take profit. Right, I sized up on this position. It was a little larger. But anyways, we'll go ahead and see how this played out. So right here already, like I'm in the trade, I'm slightly profitable in this trade already, but I'm just watching it and seeing it play out. And another thing is I got in on this trade, actually, I believe it was about right here. So there was a little bit of drawdown, not too much. And I ended up closing it like about here, but this is what my trade was looking like. So it was about a 1 risk to reward ratio now that I'm, mapping it out. This is what it looked like. So I was planning it and I was in a little bit of drawdown up here, but not too much. And I was just waiting, right? Because this is on the 15-minute time frame. So this is about an hour. I'm just waiting, sitting, chilling, trying not to stare at the chart, going about my day, eating breakfast, right? And just living my life. So if we watch this play out a little bit more, we had this big drop, and that's when the tariffs happened. So as I was sitting here watching it, the one thing that I could have done better is I saw this, and I saw this basically sweep of the Asian session that we had. So this was the Asian session, and I remember taking my profit right here because I was like, yep, I'm up $2,000. I'm just hit my profit goal for the day. I'll take it. Even though my plan was, hey, hold to here or maybe even down to here, because that's how you're going to make the real money. Like holding it to right here, I made $2,000. I probably would have made $2,500 and I would have made $5K right there. So that's something that I could have done better by using this algorithm. But I was like, nevertheless, it is what it is. I'll take my profits. And then if we just watch it play out a little bit longer, right? This is what happens when you're patient in the trade. Still being patient. And then boom, it just absolutely nails the take profit. Even more, right? So The important thing of this, right, is so now after we looked at the technicals, is understanding the validity of these sessions, right? So we have, right, and this is, I can't stress this enough, like mark on your charts, like draw on them. If I see people with charts and it's just nothing, I typically realize like you probably don't really know what you're looking at. And the biggest thing you're looking at is price over time. So what you need to understand is that the time in session is one of the most important things here, and this is one of the most important factors, especially when you have sweeps of these sessions. Now, I thought that, okay, if I sweep this session, right, and I come into here, then maybe we'll see a little bit of a pushback and we might go up a little bit. But since the fundamental news was so strong and there was so much conviction right here, the price just absolutely, breaks like a falling knife and just gets absolutely dumped. So this was probably an ideal signal that we had from this trading algorithm, right? To where it's like, okay, it came right down and it smashed both of it to take profits, and boom, it's just pure profit, almost little to no drawdown within this trade. So a lot of people were profitable on this one, which was fire. I remember, some people holding out for the entire time, which I can go ahead and show you right here. So we had a lot of wins from the people using this algorithm. You can see here's some. Let's see if I can make this a little smaller. US 30, this was a good one from Doza. This was a good sell right here on the NASDAQ. So we had a similar situation. Lots of wins, right? Just lots and lots of wins. And it makes it easier, especially when you have, this is pretty sick, 2,800, and then this was mine. So it makes it easier when you have a system that is able to help you build that confluence, right? Because that's the biggest thing, is having the confidence and the conviction in order to stay in these trades. So that pretty much that was just the entire trade that played out. But another thing that's equally important is to look at the VIX during this, okay? See how the VIX was coming down during this entire time, and then instantly, right, we get this sell signal right here. And then another thing is if I put my algorithm on it, we got a buy signal at the same time we got a sell signal. So that's like double conviction, because typically when the VIX goes up, the price of the US 30 will go down. So I saw this happen right here, and I'm like, okay, we got a double signal. This is like a golden A+ setup. And then instantly, right, it just starts to skyrocket. And you can see as long as it's going up, it's just completely selling off. So another thing that I would say I could have done better at is understanding that, okay, if you see that, you want to close your position right here, but the VIX is still just absolutely dumping, or it's pumping, then you should probably hold on to that position. So it makes it a lot easier, right, in order to hit these profitable trades when you're going in the direction, because this, technical system is telling me, okay, the price is going down in the long-term trend, it's overbought in the short term, the VIX is starting to go up. Everything is just like the perfect storm in order for you to make that big trade and make the profit. This is where, I saw people pass funded accounts, where I personally made a lot of money, etc. So it's every now and then when we get these really, really good setups where you can make, a good trade. Obviously anything can happen. Trading has risks, but this ended up being good, which I'm super happy about. So all in all, this was a good trade. Ended it profitable. And if you're interested in getting expert help from myself or plugging in this system, go ahead and click the link in my bio. I went over exactly how this works a little bit more in depth, and you can see for yourself or use it for yourself and work with me in order to optimize it for your gain. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.